Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Big Rican on Sports podcast. I am your host, I am the Big Rican, and today is Sunday, January 31st, 2021. So we are now 1 month into what has been an interesting 2021 to say the least. So you see I got a little piece of new gear on tonight that I didn't have until recently, and that is the 2021 All-State Sugar Bowl Championship hat won by the Ohio State Buckeyes. I got a shirt to go with it, but I wore the shirt already, so it's kind of dirty and smelly, so I'm not going to wear it again tonight. So tonight's episode, we're going to kick off a little different, and that is I'm going to go back to last week, and I'm going to say thank you to everybody who has listened and or watched the big birthday bash that I did. I had a lot of fun putting the LeBron Jordan episode together. I had a lot of fun doing it, and the interaction I had was great. I want to thank my buddy Steve, who I work with in the same company. I want to thank Alex from Row 7, who also was on there. And, I had a lot of fun. And I thank everybody who listened or watched for spending my birthday with me. Second thing I want to do is I want to remind you, this is the 102nd episode. So I'll get into what's coming up soon. But again, I didn't think I'd ever get to 100 episodes. But this one is the first repeat performer. Why? I'll tell you. Around my birthday in 2019, I did an episode about my issue with social media and sports today. Now, I'm big on social media, as big as I can be, on social media with my sports teams and with the podcast. So I use it as a tool. But the idiocy that I have heard in the last several days has made me want to crawl inside of Twitter and start punching people. Because it's gotten to the level where I feel like Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is running the joint. That's going to be topic number 2. So for topic number 1, I'm going to get into something that happened over the last couple of days. Now, a week from tomorrow, Tone, Alex, and I will come to you at 9 p.m. Monday night, the 8th of February, to do our next Hot Stove episode, and all the stuff that has happened recently, it's going to make that episode that much better. But something else that's happened in the world of baseball, really not the world of baseball, just the world of the New York Mets. Everybody who follows the news and other things like that, you saw the other day, Robinhood and GameStop and all the stock market crap. Well, apparently, Steve Cohen's .72? His hedge fund was involved. And since this happened, Steve Cohen has deactivated his Twitter account because he was getting threats. Because .72 had something to do with it. I'm not entirely sure. I do not do stocks. I do consumer finance. So if you got a question about a loan, I can tell you. Question about a stock, not so much. So I really don't understand what happened, but I know Steve Cohen was involved somehow. And with him being involved meant Mets Twitter went into a frenzy. Here's where I had a problem. Let's start off with the big one. Steve Cohen's family was threatened because of this. In that episode I did in 2019, I talked about how people on social media take it to a level it doesn't need to ever go to when they threaten people. I was mostly talking about kickers who miss kicks and people saying that they could have done it and they're going to kill them and what have you because of a missed kick. I also talked about how ESPN was great in trolling some of those people and seeing if they could make the kicks, and they never could. So, who's the troll now? This is probably going to tick off a lot of people when I say this, but it's that idiot Dave Portnoy who runs Barstool Sports. Let's start with why I call him an idiot. Number one, he's got a net worth of nearly $100 million, and he's talking about another rich guy. Shut up. You're not one of us. You don't punch a clock 9 to 5 and live paycheck to paycheck. Quit running your mouth about who makes who money and who's a better big guy than who isn't. And don't let your writers destroy a man because of something you know nothing about. And then it comes out you know something about it because you did somewhat close to the same thing that you were accusing Steve Cohen of doing. Shut up. And I ask myself, how can a man who is that successful in a medium that I happen to like, how can he be that ill-advised and short-tempered and at times stir-crazy stupid? And then I remembered, Portnoy went to Michigan. There's the answer. Plain and simple. He went to Michigan. All of you who know me, guy over my left shoulder there, you know who I root for. These guys. And I think the people that go to that school are second-class citizens. So, he went to Michigan. But here's the other thing that no one talked about all over social media when people were tearing a strip out of Steve Cohen. Do you know who else went to that school? The entire Wilpon family. Oh, that's right. Then the pictures of Portnoy came out with Jeff Wilpon. And the shirt that had the names Wilpon and Brady and Portnoy about all the different success stories that came out of that school. I'll give you Charles Woodson. He's from Cleveland. I'll give you Desmond Howard. He's from Cleveland. I will not give you the Wilpons. I'll give you Gerald Ford. Although he was Leslie King Jr. at that point in time. All kidding aside, Portnoy was also set to be a minority owner of the Mets had Alex Rodriguez actually been successful. So now when you put it that way, this just sounds like a guy who's got some serious sour grapes against a man who basically said, I'm going to toss my money around and I don't care who you are. I have no issue with what Steve Cohen did in deactivating his Twitter. I think it was a smart thing. He did reach out through a statement to Met fans saying he is still engaged. He still wants to communicate with us. And I say us because you see the other guy over my shoulder. He wants to improve the team and give us something to root for. That's all you can ask for in a Major League Baseball owner or any major sport owner. Give me something to root for. Give me a team I can get behind. Give me a team that I love. I bleed the colors. Give me a reason to bleed it more. And I think Steve Cohen's going to do that. We're going to get into the hot stove stuff again next week. So I will tell you what I think he's going to do in the interim to improve the Mets. And of course, we'll jump on and talk about moves that the Mets have already made. Now let's get to the more stupid thing that's happened on social media this week. And that is the idiocy that is known as Cleveland Browns Twitter. Now, I am a Browns fan. I have been a Browns follower and fan since the late 80s. So I remember when they were good. I remember when Belichick was the coach. I remember the quarterback transfer from Bernie Kosar to Vinny Testaverde. I'm throwing names out. You know I'm paying attention. I remember the hurt my friends and family in Cleveland, who had spent most of their lives there, felt when that team left the city and moved to Baltimore. I remember the happiness and the joy when that same team came back from hiatus and played in Cleveland again. And I lived through the joy this year of an 11-5 season, a win against the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs, and then, listen, they had the ball with a chance to get the lead. They couldn't get it done. Kansas City was the better team, obviously, after the beatdown that was what they did to the Buffalo Bills. So why is Browns Twitter stir crazy stupid? Well, besides the fact that some of them, I think, drink Lake Erie water, when Deshaun Watson announced he wanted to leave the Houston Texans, there are people who claim to have their faculties, who actually are trying to entertain moves where the Cleveland Browns trade Baker Mayfield and multiple first-round picks and possibly Odell Beckham to the Houston Texans for Deshaun Watson. Now, let's go over a couple of things real quick. Excuse me. Is Baker elite? Not yet. Is Baker a good quarterback? Yes, he is. 3,500 yards, 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions tell you he's good. Is Baker the sole reason the Browns were 11-5? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The best offensive line in the game, the best running game in the game. probably the best 3 tandem of tight ends in the game, and also a very good wide receiver room after Odell got hurt. But on every other team in the NFL, except for the Cleveland Browns, whenever the team has a winning record, it's the quarterback. That's why. The Bucs are only in the Super Bowl because of Tom Brady. Not because they have the best set of weapons that Tom Brady has ever seen this side of Randy Moss and Julian Edelman and those boys. The quarterback takes too much heat when the team is bad. And when it comes to teams that are good, it depends on the media's relation to the quarterback on how much credit they get. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Having said that, if you look at what this team was on draft day 2018, this was a team that was 1-31 in their last 32 games. They were coming off an 0-16 season after coming off a 1-15 season. They drafted a quarterback at number 1. Not the one people thought they should take. They thought they should take Sam Darnold, who, by the way, is probably going to be traded as well. They took Baker Mayfield. And all Baker Mayfield has done since he came in the league is take a team that was 1-31 and 4-45 in their 50 games before that and get them to 11-5 in year 3 with 4 head coaches and 4 offensive coordinators. Say what you want about Houston's front office and everything else. Deshaun Watson's had 1 coach until he was fired this year and 1 offensive coordinator. Now, yes, he had great numbers this year, and everybody says the only quarterback better than him is Patrick Mahomes. I disagree. I don't think Deshaun Watson would be as good in this system as he is in Houston. Why? Because he's not going to throw the ball 40-some times a game. Not in Cleveland. Not with that line, and not with that running game. You need a guy who can play off the play action, and you need a guy who can be, game manager's the wrong word, but in essence, that's what Baker does. But Baker's done one thing I don't think Deshaun Watson has actually done. Baker has been called upon to actually win games, and he's done it. If you want to put it out there, Baker has put the ball in his hands and gotten them wins, or kept them in games where the other side of the ball let them down. If Baker wasn't as good this year, if he had a year like last year, this year, yeah, I'd say let's look at the trade for Deshaun Watson. But one of the idiots on Twitter, and I say idiot with all the disdain in my heart that I can find, I retweeted it. I'm going to look up the tweet because this is just straight, again, stir, crazy, stupid. They wanted to send OBJ, Baker Mayfield, and 3 first-round picks to Houston for Deshaun Watson and J.J. Watt. So let's take a guy who... Now, J.J. Watt's another animal, and I'll get to him in a minute. But let's get rid of our number 1 wide receiver when he comes back from injury. Let's get rid of our quarterback, who I will read some crazy stats to you over his first 3 seasons, and 3 number 1 picks. This isn't draft day. Kevin Costner's not walking through that door. It's not Vontae Mack no matter what. This is the actual real world of the NFL. That deal, if it's done, will sink the Cleveland Browns for 4 to 5 years coming up. Because when Deshaun Watson doesn't pan out because he's never played in weather, he's never truly carried a team without an all-pro, all-world wide receiver, because as much as I love Jarvis Landry, he's not DeAndre Hopkins. And as much as I love Jarvis, he's not Odell. I don't think he'd be happy in Cleveland anyway. He's not going to be happy in a system where he's not the man, because the man in the Cleveland system is Nick Chubb, is Kareem Hunt. They are a run-first team. He's never played with that. I don't think he'd be as good. He wouldn't be as sharp. Besides that, you are talking about a quarterback that in the first 3 seasons of his career, all time with the Cleveland Browns, he has the most passing touchdowns, the most passing yards, the second best passer rating, the second best completion percentage, and the second most wins in 3 seasons. Here's that number again. Baker Mayfield has won 23 games in 3 years. The 3 seasons before Baker Mayfield, you had the 0-16 season in 2018. No, 2017. You had the one in 15 season in 2016. And you had the 3-13 season in 2015. So the 3 preceding years that before Baker took over, the Browns won 4 games. 3-13, 1-15, that's 4-28. 0-16 is 4-44. Baker Mayfield did not take over till Game 3 of his rookie season. They tied Week 1 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They lost Week 2 against the New Orleans Saints. 45, 46, and 1 in the 51 games previous to Baker Mayfield's drafting and taking over. In 2018, the Cleveland Browns were 7-8-1. Baker won all 7 of those games. So that's 7 wins. 6-10 last year. That's 13. That's 12. No, that's 13. Baker didn't get credit for the win because he wasn't the starter that night. So 6 wins his first year. 6 wins his second year. 11 wins his third. 23. So 7-8-1, that's 7 losses his first year. 17, 22. He's a game over 500. In the last 45 games, Baker Mayfield is 23-22 as the starter of the Cleveland Browns. But we want to get rid of him, a guy who wanted to come here, and a guy who wanted to play for the Cleveland Browns. You want to get rid of him for a guy who just went 4-12. I don't care what the numbers are. The numbers are what they are. The bottom line is his team was 4-12. Now, everybody's saying, oh, well, he didn't have as much help. He didn't have this. Baker Mayfield won 12 games in 2 seasons. 4 head coaches. 4 offensive coordinators. Summarily ignored. What do I think the Cleveland Browns need to do this offseason? It is very simple. Upgrade the defense. It's not an option. You cannot go into 2021 with the same defense. They need depth. They need starters. The draft is coming. I will do a Cleveland Browns mock draft. I will break down who I think the Browns should take in the first and second round. I'm not going to dive that deep. I don't have that kind of time. As a matter of fact, it's snowing outside in upstate New York right now. I am sitting here with my 2 guys behind me. I am probably going to be sitting here tomorrow. As a matter of fact, not even probably. I'm going to be sitting here tomorrow morning working from home. I don't got that kind of time. But I will go into who I think the Browns should take where. They pick at number 26. They were one of the last 8 teams in the league. And these morons want to trade their quarterback. You've got to be kidding me. Can someone please explain to me why these people want to add another name to that jersey with all the quarterback names? This is the franchise guy. I know it's not a popular opinion, and I know it's not the one that everybody in Cleveland or people that listen to this want to hear. Baker Mayfield is the Browns' best quarterback since Bernie Kosar. Bernie Kosar is still a god in Cleveland. Baker Mayfield is the best quarterback since Bernie Kosar. I firmly believe that if the Cleveland Browns improve their defense the way I think they can, with the amount of cap space they have, and the way I think they should with some of the draft capital they have, I firmly believe that next year's AFC Championship game will be the Kansas City Chiefs against the Cleveland Browns. They had him. They had him. The Browns are a horrible call away from playing against Buffalo, who I think they would have killed, and playing against Brady and hurting him next week. I mean, beating him up next week. Don't want a guy to get hurt. Just, you go by Brady and you want people to drill him. So, I tried to figure out why people want to trade Baker. And it's because of the media in general. They hammer stats. Here's the stat that matters. Guy just won 12 games this past season. Guy threw 26 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. If you count the playoffs, he threw 30-some touchdowns and 9 picks. What more can you ask from a guy who's had to deal with 4 head coaches and 4 offensive coordinators? Let's go over the head coaches Baker Mayfield's had to play for. Hugh Jackson. Today is Hugh Jackson Day, 131. Then Greg Williams, who made the stupidest call in the history of the NFL, going 0 blitz and leaving your garbage corner on an island. He was the head coach after Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley were fired. Let's not even discuss the Freddie Kitchen experiment. Guy went from head coach of the Browns to tight ends coach of the Giants. Now he's got a good offensive coordinator in Alex Van Pelt. Now he's got a good head coach in Kevin Stefanski. And all he did was, including the playoffs, win 12 games and throw over 30 touchdown passes. That's all he did. Leave Baker alone. This is our guy. I've said it 1,000 times. This is our guy. He will be the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns on opening day next year. He will be the opening day quarterback for the Cleveland Browns probably for the next 5 to 6 years. After that, I don't really like to speculate. So, what's coming up? As I said, on Monday night, the 8th of February, Tone, Alex, and I will dive into our second Hot Stove episode of the year, as we are getting closer and closer to the most wonderful day in the sports year. And no, it's not the Super Bowl. I don't care. I'm a little miffed that Budweiser's not doing a commercial this year. Like why they're not. Little miffed that they're not. That day is pitchers and catchers reporting to spring training. We're going to get into what's going on with Major League Baseball, too, as the labor strike is starting up already. I'm going to dive into the Cleveland Cavaliers season as it moves forward. Guys, look out. This is a good team. This is a very good team that is young and learning how to win on a night-to-night basis. I have been very fortunate they've played the Knicks and the Nets a lot very recently. And with me living where I live, Yes Network, who is where the Yankees do their broadcasting, also have the Brooklyn Nets. So I've been able to watch the Cavaliers. And the Knicks, they just played them the other night. I was able to watch them too. The tablet I was telling you about in the birthday show, I have the Fox Sports app on there, and I can actually watch the Cavaliers on the tablet. So this is a good team. I'm 100% honest when I say this is a good team. And it's getting stupid with the things that people are saying the Cavs should do. Social media it's a quarantine. Is it boredom? Are we getting more snow where people aren't understanding what they're supposed to be doing? I don't know. So that's next Monday night. After that, probably next weekend, I'll do the Cavs episode. And then we're going to get into the Major League Baseball preview and mostly the Mets preview. As always, Big Rican can be found as a proud member of the TimesQ Podcast Network at timesq.com. The guys are great. Everybody should really pay attention, especially with the fantasy football stuff. Before I finish, huge trade in the NFL that I think the Los Angeles Rams just got fleeced and have no idea what they're going to do. Stafford is older. He's not going to play for the next 7 to 8 years. He's not Brady. He's too injury prone. But you just sent Jared Goff and picks to Detroit for a guy who may get you to where you want to go, but until Brady retires, now the NFC is Brady's. So I'm not a huge fan of the trade for either team, really. I'm not a huge fan of Jared Goff, never was. But they did what they had to do. Of course, that trade's not done until March when the league year opens. I'm also going to get into, and I think I'm going to get into this with the guys next Monday, no one was inducted into the into the National Baseball Hall of Fame, as last year's inductees will have induction weekend all to themselves. We're going to go over it because Curt Schilling went off the deep end again. So as always, at Timeskew, as a part of the Timeskew Podcast Network at timeskew.com, you can find audio, Google, Spotify, Anchor.
Here are some results from...
And Google just cut into my show. And she's telling me she can't connect to the internet. I only do this in one take, by the way. I don't edit, so Google's going to be in it. So again, Spotify, Breaker, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Radio Public. On YouTube, Big Recon on Sports. Facebook, Big Recon on Sports. And of course, my Twitter handle, at Big Recon on Sport. Have a great weekend. Enjoy Super Bowl Sunday. I will come to you next Monday night. Guys, in all seriousness, it's baseball season. As of next Monday, it is baseball season. I'll see you guys in a week. Take care.